right now. So yeah, we're back live again with Sister Mayana. We had to do it another way because the computer was acting a little bit up. So right now we're back on and we're back recording. So Sister Mayana, I know it got chopped off in the middle. I'm not sure where I lost you, but we're definitely at the 60s and 70s emergence of the feminist unit movement, or the women's liberation movement, and how it came back up again. This is what they classify as the second wave. I wanted to ask you, are you familiar with, or do you know of those who did begin to subscribe to being black feminists, like people like Bell Hooks, if I'm not mistaken, and Angela Davis, and those who began to emerge as so-called black feminists? Have you done studies on that, and how did that was that just another spin-off of, like we heard about earlier, the 55 different types? I know I did see black feminists on the list. Are you familiar with that?
Yeah, actually, when we speak about people like Bell Hooks and we talk about Angela Davis and Bell Hooks did not subscribe to white feminism. And just because people want to slap on the word feminism to their objectives does not mean that they subscribe to white feminism. It was definitely different. Womanism becomes the black version of that movement. Alice Walker is the one, I believe, that coins this phrase. But because of the fact that history doesn't recognize our history, as black women, they didn't speak as this blanketed women, a woman kind of say, wasn't that type of woman solidarity that they would have us believe. It was definitely a very positioned, it was a very, very, very positioned movement on their part. So yeah, Angela Davis absolutely advocated for women, black women, and as black people, and she understood that there's no conversation that she is going to, you'll find with those women that you discussed where they separate the agenda of having black people be forwarded as a people. So they didn't think that those were separate agendas.
But I didn't.
They understood that they were being.
No, I was saying I didn't go so far into the studying of it to understand what were some of the distinctive, you know, separations between, and I don't even know how, because the definition is so varying. What were some of the similarities, and what were some of the differences, and what was a black feminist? Anyway, let me just start there. That now that is they didn't want to be a white feminist. Like what's a black feminist? What are some of their issues? Like I really don't know. I didn't go that far. I actually started at the roots. So if you could share, I would love to hear what were some of their concerns.
When this was happening, black women, I think this, I don't know if you heard when I was reading that they were, for example, this, I'll read this again. Somebody in this, Claiborne Carson maintains that activists largely ignored the paper. The paper that I'm talking about was the paper that was written by these two white women who were part of SNCC, which was one of the black movements that were a major part of the civil rights movement. These two white women were a part of the project, and during a personnel retreat, they tried to seduce the black women that were part of the project into believing that they were being marginalized in their own project, to kind of force. It's interesting that they actually sought to force a distinction between the women and the men in this black organization, saying to them that they weren't making any, quote, significant advancement, or they had no significant part in this project, in this movement, which which I would, Clayton is saying was largely dismissed, and probably because it's noted that during this period, in SNCC, Black women, they named at least a half a dozen Black women who all played instrumental roles in organizing things like the Freedom Rides, the sit-ins, and communications. And they also list among them a 19-year-old Black woman by the name of Zahara Simmons, who served as the director of SNCC in the Lower Mississippi Project. So these are not women the Black women were not marginalized in their own program and in their own processes. These white women started to kind of fabricate that distinction, and Black women, for the most part, didn't fall for it. But there is a woman by the name of Sarah Evans who concedes that white and Black momentarily, I think that's key, momentarily converged. And this is why she says it was momentary. She said, but they lacked trust, the trust necessary to create this sisterhood. And it's this lack of trust, and this is why there's a difference. You want to understand the difference. The difference is that the white feminists did not want Black women to identify with their Blackness. They felt that because these Black women were so attached and so wedded to their racial identities that they compromised the feminist movement, because Black women would consistently revert back to, at the end of the day, is our Blackness. More than we are facing oppression as women, but we're facing oppression as Black women. Like, you don't have that, and Black women understood and wouldn't let go of the fact that was a distinction between white women and Black women. There's an article that I read when I was in school, and I was actually looking for it to see if I could provide the title. But in interrogating the feminist movement and white women who were recruiting all of these Black women under the guise of we're all women, so we have this collective, this shared oppression because of our gender. They would attend these meetings, and at these meetings, they were all sisters. But then when we go back into the real world and we closed shop and that gavel had concluded the meeting, these women, the Black women, went back to working for these white women. And in their working spaces, white women assumed their roles of superiority. I'm better than you. I'm better than you. You work for me. We don't have the same. Those class distinctions were still there. Class distinctions between white women and Black women were so prevalent, so present, and so palpable that Black women understood this was not our fight. Because when we come out of those meetings, we're still Black women to these women. And white women started to respond to that. White women understood and diagnosed that. They understood that we can't really trust Black women in this movement because they are always going to go back to their racial identity. And because they keep de-emphasizing their gender and prioritizing their racial oppression, they're never really going to be part of this process. And even now, all these feminists, even now, these Black women who claim to be feminists are not true participants in the process. Because, for example, we'll have an example from majority. Over the last couple of weeks, everyone's timelines in social media will reflect that 13 Black women brought up charges against this white man for sexual assault. There's not this white man in a position of authority. He's a police officer, and he's abused that position to take sexual advantage of these women. There's no white feminist. There was no white feminist outcry. White women didn't come out in sisterhood solidarity to defend these female bodies. This was not a priority for the white feminist movement, even though this is clearly a sexual a whole. There was not this huge collaborative effort of all women everywhere to defend these 13 black women, because again, they were for black women, and that black is always going to be a factor, and that's something that black women understood even during this period of time, because white women were voicing that. There were conferences at Sandy Springs and Lake Villa, I think it's called. And at these conferences, these white women vocalized their concern. These black women cannot be trusted. They will not say. And white women knew that. White women were being confronted with that consistently because black women wouldn't let it go. It's saying that the Black Panther women, this is a quote from the book I mentioned earlier, Living for the Revolution by Kimberly Springer. She said Black Panther women felt that mixed gender movements were best. And the quote begins, what better way to confront sexism than side by side with black men? When given a choice, black women side with their men. In numbers, women side with our men. Exceptions arise, granted, but for the most part, black women at the end of the day will understand the value of that family unit over anything else. This book also goes on, the first chapter is available in Google Books. It's really all you need to be able to verify the things that I'm saying now. She said that during this time where white women are basically stealing themselves and they want to be all advocating for their right to do whatever they want to do at the same pace and manners as their male counterparts, during this period of time, there is a rise in access to white female bodies by black men. So black men start to partake of these white women, and white women feel free and liberated to do this. Like, we are going to date black men. We're involved in all of these, black issues, and they start to deal with black men. And that breaks down. That begins to break down on another. We were talking about the feminism, and that also contributes to the breakdown of solidarity between the male and the female. More than the female movement itself trying to drag in the black women, all of these suddenly open-minded white women are open-minded enough to be open-legged to our black men, and that also becomes a more effective way of separating the black man from his black women in ways that the feminist movement could not. And that is one of the things that this woman shows us. She points out that during that same time that this feminist agenda is happening, a result of this feminist is white women who are being so open-minded. You want to be okay, they're embracing this oppression and the struggle against oppression. One of the ways they want to be down is, we love black men too. Oh. And it was like, yay. I like that you like that. So they're moving away from the black woman. It's not paying attention to that fact and say, oh, look at how the feminists are recruiting the women. We're not looking at how this feminism is also recruiting our men and causing this division. So the white man has now is observing this, and now they are going to get involved and find ways to break things down, because that's a problem for them. That white women are acting like they were acting. It was when white men were taking advantages and being sexual with black female bodies, and the white women pretty much all they could do was be angry about it. But now they're not just angry about it. They're open. We know that even in the antebellum South, white women snuck off and broke off a little chocolate on us. So we know that, and they engaged in marriages which would necessarily make them slaves. You were a slave, you were a slave too. But now, the white men were not going to enslave these women. These white women were free white women engaging openly and defiantly in sexual that goes about the business of vilifying the black woman and saying, okay, well, black women
Give us that name
have,
again, sis. Sorry about that. Give us the name.
sorry,
I actually to
the
slow down.
Moynihan report.
Yeah, give us that name again so they can hear the name. All of this is definitely for your research. As we, and I just wanted to, 1 second, as we, like I said, I heard and hear this word just plastered, thrown around, with us not really understanding that there were different segments of this. It morphed definitely into what it became, and people used it for their own objectives and agendas, and it has so many different parts. And right now we're listening to the second wave with Sister Mayana, and she's giving a report again as the and I just want to say the European man, he vilified the black woman earlier, before slavery, in antebellum slavery, in the early 1800s, 1700s. And so now here he comes again vilifying her on the second side. So I wanted you to give that report name again for anybody who's out there who want to do the research for yourself. So A, you know what you're talking about. B, understand that men and women can be feminist or misogynistic or whatever it is, and let us be more responsible with the words that we use and actually know what they mean when we're saying what we're saying. So I'm sorry about that, but go ahead, sis.
It was called the Moynihan report. That spells Moynihan report. It's available widely online because Moynihan was a effort that was put forth by the president at the time. So it's a presidential record, and you'll be able to find that because it's part of our American historical documentation. It's important to note that this is something that was commissioned by the president at the time. And the Moynihan report at this federal level is leveling an accusation against black women, stating that because we are employed at higher levels, that it's our fault that our men are not. And they start to vilify the black woman and creating this kind of idea that black women were already liberated. There really is no such thing as a black power movement because black women don't have any problems. Black women are finding employment opportunities as scarce as black men. So black women are fine. And that causes a chasm between the black woman and the black men. Black men begin to resent us because now they're hearing it at a federal level that this is being happened, this propaganda is being spun at a very high level. Now, so now white men are getting involved in this narrative against women, whereas as you discussed earlier, white men were fine or participants in advocating for an absence of oppression in terms of slavery and abuses against the female body. But now we see them championing the other side of this and saying, no, black women are already free. Look at all the jobs they have. They're your competitors. They're the ones taking things from you. Your own women are the one, not us. We're not the enemy. It's the black women that are doing this to you.
Wow.
And
I just want to say,
black men, and now you don't even need white men to say it anymore because black men are saying it too.
Yes.
How many posts can you go to? How many times on social media will you find men
saying this?
I mean, this is white voices coming out of black lips saying exactly what these white men have said decades ago, generations ago. And that's again the name of that report is the Moynihan report.
I pulled it
where
up.
He starts to say that there's an independent black woman problem.
This is
things are happening. Go ahead. Yeah.
No, I'm sorry about that. This is getting more. When we ask questions, we're learning. This is about learning and growing and really getting clarity because no one person knows it all. So I'm very excited because Sister Mayana, she studies a lot and I like that, and she's able to bring more information. And this for me, because I'm studying more of the slavery, the antebellum slavery, and as like she says, as the narrative progresses, it's just wild to see how at first black woman, so-called black woman, the slave woman, it's on the books that you're not rapeable. So that was the justification for raping of the black woman because she wasn't rapeable. It was, she's not rapeable. because she's promiscuous by nature. And then they change the narrative now that she's angry, or maybe now there's a lot of mixed babies. Now they come and change the narrative. See, it's because she's a Jezebel. That's why. You know what I'm saying? And she's also an angry black woman. See, and this is why she's acting like this. And then when the script is flipped, they're like, oh, it's because, this is so wild for me. It's like someone is always changing the narrative. And then that reflects, like you said, and I've said in times past, that we are often seeing one another through male European eyes. So even though people hate the system and they hate so-called white supremacy, the reality is you're still viewing your counterpart and society and the litmus for what is successful and what is failure through his eyes. So this joint right here is just, I'm sorry, but go ahead, sis. This is why I just see the narrative keep flipping over. Anytime it behooves the individual or is more beneficial to them, the narrative keeps changing. And the reality is that we don't know these narratives really. I didn't know this till you just said it. And as we look deeper into it, we see where these stereotypes are coming from. We see where these ideologies are coming from, and we see who's really putting, in this context, the fly in the soup. So this is wild right here. But I'm gonna go ahead and give it over to Sister Mayana because I got more reading to do.
On page 37 of Living for the Revolution, Black feminist organizations through the years 1916 to 1980. On page 37, it kind of echoes what you just stated. It says that controlled by elite groups, this public discourse typically counts as legitimate knowledge and often is grounded in false universals. Public transcripts on television and films and in public policy, reports on black communities revived the Mary stereotype and gave it a contemporary look in the form of the black matriarch, a common African American folk adage that, quote, the only free people are white men and black women, end quote, accuses black women of collusion. I want you to hear what's being printed in this book and see if you can hear it echo in posts that you may have seen yesterday or the week before. It accuses black women of collusion with white men during slavery and in present to oppress black men. In this racialized version of the Genesis narrative, black women betrayed black men who were then cast out of the Eden that is the garden of patriarchal power. Daniel Patrick Moynihan, again, the spelling of Moynihan is Moynihan. Then a Harvard sociologist brought this tale of betrayal to currency in 1965 with the publication, here's the name of the publication of, quote, The Negro Family, The Case for National Action. Now, this important is this the title. The title says The Negro Family, The Case for National Action. Now, in 1965 and all the years before that, black people are indisputably marginalized. Certainly not a concern for the entire nation, but suddenly the black family, the Negro family, is a case for national action. White men say this is what we all need to know about, we all have to discuss, we all need to be thinking about this thing. All of a sudden, this is something that's a national case for national attention. The title, again, The Negro Family, The Case for National Action. Sheila Radford Hill marks this as a moment in which black women's traditional role as the reservoir of the community's public morality and racial identity were publicly attacked. So, the reason that I was reading this portion to you is that you can see that a lot of the things that we are hearing now about black women being in collusion with white men during slavery, that's a European narrative. This is not even something our men came up with. You have all of these brothers saying these exact things to us, not understanding that they are not speaking in their own voices. They are being puppets to a European narrative that was fed to them, and they are now voluntarily reproducing it and voluntarily imposing it on us. They have voluntarily married the black man who was then cast out of Eden. That's again, which is why it tells you very clearly that this is a European retelling. It says in this racialized version of the Genesis narrative, this is not our men speaking. This is our men repeating. This is not our culture saying that the black women are the enemies of the black men. Even using our creation narrative and creation context of Eden is speaking here, who was then cast out of Eden. This is all language is getting thrown back at us from our men, but not really from our men.
Correct.
Just kind of by our men at this point. So it's interesting to see where all of these very painful and hurtful narratives are really coming from. Because how many times do we have to sit with sisters on the phone? I'm sure this is your experience too. We're talking to our sisters on the phone. We're asking, why do our men hate us?
Correct.
Why do they hate us? Where is this coming from? What did we do? And we know we didn't participate. As most black women know that we don't have any political affinity with the agenda of white women. We don't share those spaces. We don't share their problems. And even if we all get, if you asked earlier, what about Angela Davis and bell hooks that they get discussed in terms of feminists and feminism? The fact is that you and I get discussed in those terms, simply because we're addressing the issue that affect women. So just by virtue of the fact that we are addressing issues that affect women, we get to earn that same title. You and I, if others were to write about us, would easily decide to list us.
And that was kind of my point. That was my point. I'm sorry. That was my point earlier. That this title is so, like you said, in the original post, it's just haphazardly labeled. And even if it's legitimate concerns, and even if it is within the construct of Torah, and even if it is just to point out what's going on, basically, for lack of a better word, wickedness, people are going to say, hey, you're a feminist. And by design, whether you are one of the 55 plus subsets, it carries a negative connotation. You understand what I'm saying? And so that was kind of my line of questioning earlier, that what's that about? But I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, because on the following page, another insight states that Moynihan ignored persistent racial discrimination as a factor in black male unemployment rates. Black women did not usurp black men's jobs because black women occupied gendered positions.
Correct.
In the sex-segregated job market. So they were not in competition with us. The fact that black men were not getting employed, they were not getting employed in male employment opportunities. They were not taking up opportunities reserved for them. We were being employed in spaces that women got employed in, not spaces that men would have been up for. They were not being in competition. They were not going to be seamstresses with us. So black women were being employed as seamstresses and other decidedly female-oriented, very gendered positions that black men would not have been. We weren't elevator operators. We weren't going for these jobs that black men would have been applying for. We were not their competition. But the Moynihan report and reports like it made it seem that way, reported it that way, and the men ate it up. And the men continued to eat it up to the extent that you and I in 2015 still have to hear the same thing. Black women have all the jobs. Black women are our competition. Black women are our enemies. Black women don't like us. Blah blah blah. These are not rooted. These are insecurities that are not rooted in reality. These are manufactured insecurities that were fed to our men that they have voluntarily adopted and are now reflecting back to us. As another way to explain away
their reality.
Why they haven't been able to accept us.
I think it's. I think.
Engage us. But this has nothing to do with the feminist movement. I'm listening.
No. I just think that this is why these kind of conversations. I know when I first put it up, because it's not my normal steez. You know, people might have been like, "What in the world is going on with Amuna?" But these are the reasons why I think these conversations are necessary to unveil these stereotypical narratives that are rooted, like you said, not in reality, and things such as what actually happened after the time of slavery, things such as, you know, trumped up charges and the incarceration rate going up, things such as unions that barred men from going into men occupations. So these are the things that made the men. And there's a book called Slavery by Another Name. It's also was made into a documentary that speaks about this very thing. So it wasn't the woman who took that. It was the Europeans who felt like they're going to come for, because you were the more skilled labor, because you were doing the work, they're going to come for our labor, they're going to come for our work, by extension they're going to come for our wealth, and they're the ones who blocked you. But again, it's like every time something is wrong, you know, you do a little hocus pocus, and then you write some reports and you do whatever the case may be, you change the narrative, and we eat it up, put line and sinker. But there is a trail. And this is what this conversation and many more like it is about, to follow that trail so that we can go and see the truth of the matter. It really started, like I said, when I started to look at this angry Black woman narrative, and it's just getting deeper and deeper as I see that everything spawned out of this time where we had to, like the 1830s, the 1820s, you know, no more international slavery. And the South really was in trying to convince, as you will, the North that, you know, they kind of like it. You know, we're not doing nothing wrong. When they were being called into account of what's going on and it's wrong, they began to spin these crazy narratives to justify what was now, you know, being hung out as dirty laundry, basically, to justify all of these mulatto children, to justify what is being the reports that are coming out of the South. And this is where a lot of those stereotypes were coming from, as we see Sister Mayana just brought out this stereotype. When there's new questions being asked, then now, you know, the Spingali's behind the joint just making up some more stuff that, you know, somebody got to stop and be like, hold up, where'd you get that from? You know what I'm saying? Were you going to be the nanny? You feel me? I mean, did I steal the nanny job from you? Like, were you going to be Mr. Belvedere or something? What's up? So, you know.
Yeah. I mean, none of this is to say that just because Black feminists were still willing to embrace their racial identities, and we're not, and for the most part, and that's important to state, that for the most part, they had no interest in abandoning their men. We were not in opposition to our men. There was the Black feminists such as Angela Davis and Bell Hooks and others, when they were being, quote, feminist, unquote, they were doing what feminists do, and that's trying to carve out something for women specifically that didn't exist already for women specifically. This is not to say that feminism and what we are doing is the same.
No. Yeah, put that on record.
that we are being feminist.
No.
Actually, to say that we're absolutely not, even Black feminists, we're not talking any kind of feminism.
No, not at all.
We're not any of that. Because both of these movements, whether they are the only distinction we're making between Black feminism or womanism and regular umbrella feminism is that it wasn't always compatible, and this idea that Black women sold out our men to participate in that process has to be addressed and refuted. That's just to understand there was always a difference between what Black women wanted and what feminism wanted.
I have one more question.
Those differences. I'm sorry?
No, I'm sorry. Go ahead. I have one more question when you're done. I'm sorry.
Okay, with those differences notwithstanding, what we do when we are sharing information isn't feminism either, even though what we're doing also has the shared intention of not diminishing anything from the men. The distinction between what we do and what feminists and feminism does is that we are not trying to create, that's the distinction I said before, and I'm repeating it now, is we're not creating anything. We're not advocating for any permissions. We're only saying that these are the things that are already in place in our Torah, in our culture, in our history. And we want the history to speak for itself. We're not asking to make history. We're not trying to make history. We're trying to reclaim history. Our women had these spaces. We were allowed to do these things. And the way it's being repackaged and reimagined and resold to us is as if those things never happened. They didn't exist. And when we start having conversations about it, we are inventing discourse. We are trying to disrupt the natural order of things, that we are trying to rally against patriarchy and there's all these other insecurities that are born from things like the Moynihan Report. They have no root and no genesis in our Torah or in our scriptures. It all comes from the paranoia of white men. It has nothing to do with Hebrew culture. These are all facts. When we tell you that we had women who functioned as prophets, when we tell you that there were women who were credited with building cities, building whole cities. And this can't be. Not only did this woman build the city, she named it after herself. So there's no confusion about whether or not she actually is the architect of the city. It's named after her. Okay, so there are women who occupied these spaces. There are women who functioned in these ways. This is part of our reality. There are women who imparted wisdom. Women who are actually called the wise women. There are women who were professional whalers. We occupied very significant spaces. We were participants in this narrative. We were participants in this narrative to the point that we would not accept being reduced to a footnote in our own narrative. And when we say that, that is not to forward a feminist objective. Instead, it is to reclaim our Hebrew feminine identity. And there's a difference between being feminine and being a feminist, which is why at the top of the form, we gave you the definition for feminism.
All right, so we're gonna go ahead and I wanted to ask, I was gonna get him back the definition, but for those who have just joined us, we're on the tail end of a very interesting conversation, minus the little technical difficulty of when everything dropped. So I hope you stuck with us and really got something out of this. Definitely do your own research. Some good information was dropped so that you won't just be shut down when someone says the word. Like myself, before this research, really didn't know really what it meant outside of the common narrative that you hear repeated all the time. I wanted to ask one more question, as this word comes up often, especially in today, because now they said since the year 2000, the third wave, it's 3 waves, they said, over 55 different theories of feminism here. And the third wave, all of this, which you can substantiate, there's even, but anyway, I'm not going to go off track. The third wave now, and the one that is identifying with homosexuality, and how now in some circles, by one saying that they're a feminist, it equals man-hater, equal homosexual. What has your research borne out on that, especially as it relates to quote unquote Black women, and the persona now that is being projected if you subscribe openly to this title? Have you come across any information on that aspect of it?
The third wave is actually being influenced by the second wave, because this idea that black female participants in the feminist movement hated men and were lesbians. I mean, that happens in the second wave. Every possible way that could be used to diminish the intent behind the movement was used. I mean, in fact, Black women began to be called Uncle Tom for being a participant in the feminist movement. Interestingly, the people calling them Uncle Toms were white women. The white women were using this after they had gotten recruited, or they felt like they had gotten sympathy from trust us. So you know what? If you could betray your race, you betray us. And they started calling us Uncle. So this feminism has never been a comfortable space for Black women. Period. It has always our involvement in it has always been a very complicated space. Black men would vilify the movement. White women didn't trust our dedication or commitment to the movement because they knew that we didn't co-sign to a lot of what they had to say, and they already didn't trust us. And then there's all of this conversation about the fact that at any time we would abandon the gender identity in favor of our racial identity, and so they would instead start to feed the insecurities of our men and others by saying, they are Uncle Toms. They did abandon you. All kinds of nonsense. So being a lesbian, hating our men, abandoning our people, all of those were a consequence of that second wave where women started to acknowledge that, yes, as women, there are oppressive factors, cultural, political, economic oppressive factors. We acknowledge that. But the fact that we would never 100% commit to that's our sole avenue of oppression, we were trapped on all sides. We never really belonged anywhere. White women didn't receive us. Black men didn't trust us. So it has never really been a steady, stable Black feminist movement for all of those intersectional reasons.
Wow.
So yeah, absolutely. The fact that homosexuality is becoming something else to attach to the feminist movement, and you have to also kind of attribute that to the fact that there are large numbers of women who self-identify as lesbians. I mean, they are lesbians. I want to say maybe Alice Walker was bisexual.
If I'm not mistaken, it does Angela Davis. If I'm not mistaken, Angela. Right.
Huh?
That's why I asked the question, because I saw, as I'm looking, a number of them identify with this orientation that furthers that narrative that if you are in this category. And I saw in Africa is like, don't give me the word feminist, you know what I'm saying? We rock with womanists, because that feminist one is a bit wild. But so Africa is called Africana womanism. And just different places around the world in Islam countries where they were saying, you know what, we don't want to be as extreme as you know what I'm saying? We don't want to just run around in our bikinis or nothing. We just want to have the right to drive. You understand what I'm saying? And so for these things, it's kind of like how it was in this country in the 1800s, where it's like, no, I'm not that extreme. I want to keep my clothes on, but I'm saying, allow me to go to the store without a brother accompanying me. Things of this nature, where we see so many fractionals that overseas, I think they said there's one called ethnic feminism, where overseas they didn't want to subscribe to the full out, wildness, for lack of a better word, of where America was going. And a lot of the internationally blames America for setting the tone for women to begin to, after they passed the part of, okay, give me some of these inherent rights, just going literally buck wild. And it's just very interesting. I hope those who have listened and who will listen have gotten something out of it. The title was The F Word, or the truth about the F word feminism. So I hope that you were able to find some truth in it, and to understand that if you see people amongst you, especially those who are biblically inclined and believe in the Torah and subscribe to its principles, if they're speaking out for, like what Sister Mahalea, I was going to call you Mahalea Slika, for what Sister Mayana is saying, it's not to say that you're advocating for something that inherently is not yours. And so when we use these titles one to another, or behind people's backs, or whatever the case may be, we have to be aware of the history of these things, and to be more responsible with our words. Sister Would you like to say anything else before we go ahead and wrap it up for the night? I think it's been an excellent session indeed.
Oh, and yeah, thank you again for inviting me to these conversations. But in addition, like we're talking about in Africa and here and in the Caribbean, also in Brazil, these kinds of racial line boundaries and distinctions in feminism were also prevalent. So this is not something that is unique to our
America.
country and our
Correct.
time or our spaces, even though this is what our frame of reference is. But we need to understand that cross-culturally and across time,
Yes.
this has been an issue. And just to go back and emphasize that we're not justifying feminism at all. The purpose of the conversation was to mark that distinction that when we say, when we put Sarah in context, when we put Abigail in context, when we put polygyny in context, when we put different ways that women contributed to the Hebrew narrative in context, we are only discussing facts. I have to have another post that we read an excerpt from the most recent post that I did, questioning our thought processes organized around feminism. But before that, there was an article, a post that I wrote that distinguishes between facts, feminism, femininity, and fear. And those are the four components that we're really coming up against when we start to discuss things honestly. And the reality of Hebrew life in antiquity and in modernity for a lot of this discussion, we are actually coming up against issues of fear. What the men fear this dialogue incites or implies. We are coming up against bad information about what feminism is, and a lack of information about what Hebrew femininity is. And because of those three things, we're completely unable to embrace the facts of those three concepts. So that's why this was necessary, because we're going to continue to interrogate our Hebrew narrative, and we have to lay this foundation first before we start being accused of forwarding a feminist agenda. We want to first identify what feminism is, so that when we tell you this is a feminist objective, that this is an effort to reclaim our authentic Hebrew feminine identities, you understand what we mean.
All right. And that exactly is the point, as we, like Sister Mayana said, as we go into understanding and really being able to point out certain things that are, like she's saying, disinformation basically. And I like to just shine light, don't just wait for somebody to be like, you, such and such, just shine the light right now. Let's take a look. Or you didn't hear it, go back and take a listen. Let's have this conversation, because edification is the only way we're going to be able to really have a conversation. We cannot have a conversation based on stereotypes, disinformation, and I said, you said, we said. Let's get to the history. Let's get some understanding so we can move forward in truth. So definitely, I thank everybody for tuning in once again. Sorry for the little thing that went on with the computer. There's much more, but that's just scratching the real surface to understand that things are definitely deeper than they seem. And they're really not just coming out of nowhere. They're definitely being manufactured from somewhere. And so at some point, we begin to turn on this light so that we can really come together and really work together and really get further in our efforts to do so. So once again, thank everyone for tuning in, and stay tuned. If you haven't subscribed, please subscribe. You can check out Sister Mayana Johnson on Facebook. You can check me out, Amuna Yisrael, on Facebook. And if you're listening, you would like to be a part of the panel and the conversation. It is not a monologue. It is a conversation. This is how we grow and edify. Everybody brings in their information. As long as you have your sources that other people can go back and refer to and do, then you're welcome to have this conversation respectively, of course. So if you desire to do so, just hit me up with an email or at emunayisrael.com, or find me on all social medias Or if you're looking at this, just subscribe and send me a message, and we'll definitely invite you on. Again, it's all about respect. So, we keep everything respectable. No cursing, no profanity, no defacement, and things of that nature. So, it's all in the name of edification. So, all praise be to the Most High. Thanks everybody for tuning in. Until next time, go with the Most High.
Shalom.
Shalom.